just for everyone that's going to be watching this, my name's Ed Serber. I'm a board member with Almond Acres. And then Abby, you want to introduce yourself?
And I'm Abby Stoltzbus, also a board member of Almond Acres, and I have 2 kids at school.
And Eileen, introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I'm Eileen Higgins. I am the Director of Support Services for Almond Acres, and I also have 2 children that attend school, a 6th grader and an 8th grader, who should be on math right now, hopefully.
Yes. I also have 2.
Doing
Yeah, exactly. I also have 2 children as well. So Cody, who's in 2nd grade, and Charlotte in 6th grade. And I just checked on them. So they're both, focused on their schoolwork, hopefully for another, few minutes here. So thanks for taking the time and joining Abby and myself. We just wanted to ask you a few questions, talk specifically about the topic of the effect of the pandemic on Almond Acres and just sort of how the school has, what they've done. We feel like as board members and parents, it's gone really, really well, but we just wanted to chat with you for a few minutes and kind of get a little bit of the behind the scenes about, why things have been going so well. So the first question is really just maybe give us a brief overview of how Almond Acres has been handling distance learning since school began this August. So just kind of, again, your perception from an administrative perspective and just how things have been going and kind of how the planning is unfolded and all that stuff.
Yeah, so distance learning, we were very fortunate, I will say, with the way that it went for us in the springtime. We took some very strategic steps in the spring to train staff, to give messaging out to our families, to come up with scheduling that really set us up. So when we had to come back into distance learning, which we weren't expecting, right? We weren't expecting to be back in this model over the summer. We were hoping we were going to be back. We wanted our kids back on campus, but that wasn't the case. So having done all of that work in the spring really set us up for some success in the fall. Most of our families were familiar with Google Classroom. Our teachers were familiar with all the digital platforms they were going to have to be using. So those pieces were already in place. The big change for us really was SB 98 came down from the state and gave us some more guidelines and some more structure to how we have to do distance learning. And for example, it gave us minimum amounts of minutes of instruction that we have to offer each day. So looking at our scheduling, we had to change up how we did our scheduling for the students and the teachers in terms of the amount of instruction daily. Luckily, it wasn't that different from what we'd done in the spring, but we had to make sure we were meeting those specifics. We also had to take a look at student engagement that we didn't have to look at in the spring. The state said you have to track student engagement, not necessarily the same as attendance. It's what are you offering students on a daily basis in terms of curriculum and instruction, and we have to track that. So it really kind of honed our vision of what does each day look like in relationship to our different grade level pacing guides. How are we going to try to maintain that pacing in this distance learning model? So those are all the considerations that we really had to sort of step back and look at when we came back in the fall. I'm proud to say I think it went really, really well. And I think for those reasons that I said, we've had those professional development pieces. We had a lot of students that were already familiar with those digital platforms. I think that some of the challenges, and I don't want to, challenges might not even be the right word. Some of the considerations were we have sort of 2 programs we've decided to run this year with our at-home academy and our distance learning, where we have students intending to come back and have now come back for most of our grade levels, and making sure that those programs have equity between them and are getting what they need in both categories. And that's been something that I think has been a learning curve for administration because we haven't run that sort of dual program before. But I will give a huge shout out to Amy Baker and Carrie Field. They are amazing at their programming development, and I feel like those families are getting a quality program from all of that work that they've done. Mm-hmm. Did I touch on everything?
You did such a great job. I just want to just sort of add to, from a parent's perspective, as well as, just as a board member being involved with some of the discussions, as you guys were planning sort of coming back to school in a distance learning model, just like everyone else. I was thoroughly impressed. Not only as a board member, seeing what you guys had done over the summer and all the work and effort you put in to make sure that it. I'm sure there was a lot of stressful times trying to figure out the details, but I can just say that from the outsider's perspective and what I've experienced as a parent, it seemed to go off without a hitch. And I know that's probably not true behind the scenes, but anyway, I just wanted to just kind of, I guess, show my gratitude. I think you guys did an amazing job.
I appreciate that, but I want to give kind of a shout out to all the staff, because I think that one of the reasons that it has gone well is because everyone has demonstrated a lot of flexibility and grace. And, if we have to adjust things, we have to. And I know, and I'll speak for my own self, because I was a teacher and you have sort of your world that you're trying to implement, your community and your curriculum and all of that. But so having constant changes handed to you, as a teacher, as well as our paraeducator staff and all of our staff, that we've really had to kind of roll with constant information coming in from the state, from the public health department, from the CDE, giving us sort of guidelines and adjustments, I would say almost on a weekly basis, some of which is more public, some of which is more behind the scenes. But I have to kind of give a huge shout out, because the staff has really rolled with that and been open, as well as our board. Actually, you guys gave us that flexibility to sort of, make adjustments on the fly and say, okay, we absolutely have to change this right now. We can't continue this. So as an example, we started out with one middle school schedule this year. And a few weeks in, we really recognized this isn't the most effective schedule for our middle schoolers. And both of you have middle schoolers. You were witness to that. And I have middle schoolers. And we were able to stop, and literally over a 24-hour period, we completely revamped the middle school schedule. But that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have super flexible teaching staff, have administration that's open to those types of conversations, and had that flexibility from our board to say, fix the problem. It's not working. We need to make it work much, much better. And I think we were able to do that due to everyone's flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, kudos.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good. So just to kind of transition a bit now, so now that we're, the last, I guess, what was the date? About a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we started transitioning back into this kind of hybrid model, right? Where we have, and I'll have you kind of explain that a little bit, but maybe just kind of describe it a little bit, how the transition is happening. And then, what are sort of the challenges that you're seeing now, and what are some of the benefits, or I guess sort of the good things that you're seeing so far?
So I'll go first for sort of that structural component of how we transitioned. We really, we set a very clear timeline as an admin team of when are we going to bring which group back? A lot of our fellow schools in the area started out with their kinder TK 1 and 2s. And I will give Carrie Field full credit for this one. She said, why are we bringing back our kiddos that don't necessarily have the experience of being students on campus, such as our kindergartners? So why don't we bring back the group that's been here the longest, our middle schoolers, so if there are logistical challenges, they can help us smooth things out. So we, based on that conversation many, many weeks ago, that was early October, late September, we set a very clear timeline that will bring back our middle schoolers, that will bring back our 3-5, and our K2s will be our last group. So we really can have a smooth transition for those little ones who really need the most help navigating the school environment. So we set a very clear timeline. And then we started parsing out information to our families and to our teaching staff about what their days were going to look like. We made a decision early on. Many schools did a morning and afternoon hybrid, where you have groups coming for half day in the morning and then half day in the afternoon. Based on our population and our demographics, we felt that probably wouldn't be as effective, because we have families that drive from all over the county, and having them come for maybe 2.5 hours of school didn't really seem logistically responsible for our families. So we decided to move with that 2 full days of the week for our students. Again, logistics, we just happen to be a school that doesn't have that neighborhood sort of structure to it. So based on that, we sat down and we mapped out basically daily schedules for the students. Middle school definitely probably was the most complicated, because we have single subject teachers who are teaching subject matter that it's not one teacher teaching multiple subjects now. They have a social studies teacher, science, math, etc. So ELA, I feel really bad if I just left that out and didn't say, poor Miss Reed, I did not mean to leave you out. But we had to look at that schedule, and we had to really consider, how are we going to make sure they get those subjects without violating any of the health and safety issues that we have to address. And luckily, it kind of all correlated with our county moving back into red, and we had a little more flexibility that staff could rotate. Our students can't rotate, but staff can. So we were able to sort of finagle that middle school schedule first, and then kind of down the line, we set the 3-5 schedule and the K2 schedule. And we parsed out all of that information, scheduling, materials, how is drop-off going to look, how is pickup going to look, to each group in its time. So for example, that information just went out yesterday to our K2 families. We felt that if we needed to make adjustments, we didn't want to send out sort of this master, this is how it's going to look for everybody, but then we bring our middle schoolers back when we have to make adjustments. Now we've already handed out all this information. So we were that was really a conscious choice to say, we're going to just give information out to those groups as they come back in case we have to make adjustments. I will say, starting with the middle school, I am partial. I love the middle schoolers, and I was a middle school teacher. So I have a big heart for middle school, and being able to walk in and see them on those first few days and give them that honor of saying, hey, we brought you back for a reason. We brought you back because we know you can communicate things that are not working. You can provide ideas. You know our campus, you know our expectations, and really set them up as, you're not here just as a student. You are here because you are an essential member of our community who can then help the rest of our community. And seeing them back in class, they were so excited to see each other and to see us, which, those of us that work in the office, kids aren't always super excited to see us because sometimes that's not their happy place. But to have everybody, just the energy on campus was really, really great to see. And it didn't work perfectly. We had our first week, we had a teacher get sick and they had to be out for a day, and we had to look at how we're going to sub that out. And I would say, if we talk challenges, those are some of the things that we will face moving forward. There is a sub shortage across the county that's not local to us, but it definitely is a huge issue for us. So we've tried to strategically place staff. So for example, we have a staff member who is eligible to sub. They were performing duties that kept them working with students. Well, we have reassigned those duties and put them in a situation where they are available should we need an emergency situation to pull them into sub, we can do that. But that, I think, is probably our hardest challenge, is not knowing when people may need to be out for any reason. People jump to the COVID issue as the reason to be out, but we have people, as was announced in Shared Start, who have gone through family loss. We have, I will speak to my own situation. I had to quarantine because I traveled and I didn't realize that was the case. So now I'm working from home again. And, and my children are now quarantined. So how are we getting work to them when they were only on campus 2 days, but we really want them to continue with their curriculum? So those are sort of the final pieces that we're really trying to hone right now. But the availability of staff is probably one of our bigger challenges in terms of that substitute issue. Our staff is fabulous. They're dedicated. They're not by any means not showing up or not wanting to be there. They're doing a wonderful job. But like I said, issues come up, and they would if we were not in a situation that was being dictated by COVID safety. So there's just that need for extra staff, I guess you would say, our substitute staff.
Sure, makes sense.
I feel like there was another part to that question, Ed, and I think I might have forgotten what it was.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I think you answered it very well. Just generally speaking, sort of the transition, some of the challenges and the things that have been difficult. And I think you explained it quite well. If you want to add anything, you're more than welcome to.
Well, I think what's interesting is I think we were anticipating more challenges. I will say that I think we were anticipating it being, so for example, check-in in the morning, having to do the temperature checks and all of that. we quickly, we were kind of overstaffed. We said, we need people out there to do this. And then we realized the kids are great at it because they're having to do it in a lot of other locations. Things like the kids wearing masks has not really been an issue because the kids are good at it. They've had to do it all summer. They've become accustomed to some of these processes and procedures. And so that was really sort of a wonderful, this isn't as complicated as we thought. Now, there are other challenges, but the actual bringing kids onto campus and having them walk and be in a classroom, that actually has gone really well.
Awesome. Has there been, and you sort of touched on a couple of things already, but has there been any particular one or two things in your opinion or from your perspective, or maybe that you've heard from the team that has been, surprisingly positive, something that just you were like, wow, we did all this planning, but is there sort of one thing that stands out in your mind, Eileen, that is just surprisingly amazing, I guess?
I think there's a couple things, but I don't know if it was surprising. I don't. That's where I don't know if there was anything super surprising other than the ease of bringing kids on the campus. But I also think the thing that was more than we expected was the happiness of the kids. Mm-hmm. I think that was we knew they were missing each other. And I will say, I sit in a lot of parent meetings and I have had conversations with so many parents. And I know Amy's had lots of conversations, Bob's had lots of conversations with parents about kiddos who are struggling with their own social emotional situation. They're battling their parents at home to get work done. There's struggles going on in families. And I think, I've been trying to give the message to parents that you're not alone. This is what a lot of families are facing, including myself, trying to, be a working parent and have your children doing this distance learning program is not easy. And there's a lot of emotions that are being tied to that. So seeing the kids come back and seeing how happy they were to see each other and to interact with their teacher and interact with the staff on campus, it was really joyous. I'll use that word. It was absolutely joyous. And I hope your kids came home and shared that because, even this week, my own child said, when I told her she couldn't go to class, she said, but I just started seeing everybody, and there's real disappointment. It was genuine disappointment that, wait a minute, another week of me having to sit, and even though theoretically some kids love to sit at home, there is this need to commune and interact and be a part of 100%. A social structure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I totally, I've experienced that too. We've been talking about traveling for the holidays, maybe, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm getting this, well, I don't know if I want to go anywhere because I'm going to have to self-quarantine so it's an interesting thing where, in the past it was like, I can't wait to go see the grandparents or whoever for Christmas or the holidays. But now it's sort of like, I don't know if I want to go anywhere because I want to make sure I can go back to school.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And I give our teachers so much credit for that because picture trying to create that community in a distance learning environment and then to have it pan out where you're back in class and the kids are so excited they're objecting to travel and family. I mean, that's right. I give our teachers a ton of credit for that, right? That you were able as teachers to create an environment that they're still engaged in and they have an interest in, coming back and seeing you and seeing their peers. So I give our teachers a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. I'm going to ask one more question, then Abby, I'll let you take a couple questions for yourself.
Sure.
So not to second guess anything, but if there's one or two things that you or the team could have done differently, if you could have gone back and sort of whether it's during distance learning or in this phase you're in now, which is coming back onto campus, is there one or two things that you wish you could have had done differently?
It's so hard to say because I think that I think my deeper wish is to have been able to maintain things over a bit more time in the sense that we had to make adjustments on the fly so many times just because of the directions that we were being given that I wish that we were able to give our staff a stronger sense of what the plans are and how long we're going to be in this situation, because I think there's a lot of emotion when you keep having to change what the game plan is. And I don't think we've had huge game plan changes, but when you're, as a teacher, learning, and I shouldn't say a little bit, navigating all of this, this sort of environment of the distance learning, I think any little change is hard. And I wish that we would have had consistent information, or every guidance is a guidance that we get from the state. And so it's, the next guidance has a little bit more information, it's just a little bit different, and it's just these little subtle things. So I wish maybe consistency might be the one thing that I would say, and not necessarily from a programmatic standpoint, but from a outside of our control standpoint,
Sure.
what we don't have control over.
Sure.
But I don't know if that really answers your question, but I think overall that probably is the one thing that makes this, that I would say I wish we could have changed. But
Yeah. No, it does answer the question, and it was a bit of an unfair question. I didn't mean to, make it sound like there was any problems, because I think, again, everyone in the world right now is facing a lot of these challenges. But I think one of the things that Almond Acres is proud of is, hey, we crushed it, we did a good job, but we could have done these couple things a little bit better, and that's okay, right? It's not beating ourselves up, but I think, I think you answered it perfectly. So I don't know, Abby, do you have a couple of questions to ask Eileen?
Well, and I'll add to that. You guys have done so well with what you've been given, and the things that you wish you could have done differently were certainly not in your control, but you did as best you can with what you were given, and you were flexible, which is so much of what Almond Acres teaches to the students. You as staff and teachers were modeling to them, think win-win. How can we do this? So a couple questions. One thing I am hearing within the community is communication. And as we all know, communication is so essential for the success of moving forward with school. You guys have done such a fantastic job communicating with us as parents and us as board members, kind of the plans moving forward, as fluid as they are. Could you just tell us how you have communicated with your staff and your students and your family as you have prepared to shift onto campus?
So we have a few vehicles that we kind of rely on for that. In terms of staff, I'll start with staff. We have, during distance learning, we had 2 staff meetings a week. We had 2 mornings. We met for 15 minutes just for updates, quick questions, those little adjustment things that we have to go over. And then we were doing our monthly organizational health meetings also. But in addition to that, Amy and Carrie lead the weekly PLC meetings for the teachers, where they talk more programmatic details and the nitty gritty about curriculum, grading, those types of things. In addition, I meet about every couple of weeks with the support services team. They don't have a lot of free time because they are with a lot of students all over the place, but we meet every couple of weeks, and then I communicate with my case managers almost daily on things that are popping up. But in terms of our structures, we really have that PLC, that morning meeting time, or I should call it, we started calling it a KPI, but then we kind of switched it to morning meeting. It's kind of been a variety of names, but it's basically our morning staff get together. We have transitioned that to once a week, a little bit longer now that we're back on campus, because we need staff to be available to meet their students in the morning. In terms of parents and students, Parent Square has been our primary, and we have a structure to that. So Erin has her posts that go out every Wednesday, and then Bob has his Friday posts that are going out, and then Amy posts those sort of bigger programmatic pieces as necessary. Like I mentioned earlier, for the coming back to school in the hybrid, about 2 weeks before, a week and a half, 2 weeks before, a post went out to those grade levels that were coming back about materials, schedules, drop off, those details. And we have sort of an effort, and I don't know if effort's the right word, but we have a focus of trying not to give information overload and trying to deliver things in a timely manner when they're pertinent. And so I know Amy's posts are really focused on that. Erin's posts are focused on that. Bob tries to focus on what's important that week. And then our last thing, obviously, is our Shared Start announcements. We have communicated with our students primarily through Shared Start, and the teachers follow that up in their classes with their morning meetings, their daily morning meetings. So we sort of have all these structural components in place for communication. Yeah. And we look at our students and our families as, they're our customers, or this is our customer service. We have to be providing that communication because they're choosing to come to us. I mean, and that's sort of an honor thing, right? Like you've chosen us, so we need to give you a good product and good communication about what we're doing with your kiddo and what's going on with our school and all of the craziness going on around us. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like it's been very efficient and very informative. And I think it's a reflection with the success that you've had, with the smoothness of the transition of having kids come onto campus. You put out the parent square to, here's what to expect on your first day of school. And this is what it looks like when when your parents drop you off at school: temperature checks, hand sanitizer, walk 6 feet apart, social distance to your classroom, and you guys communicated that so nicely to us. So the kids, it wasn't a surprise when they walked onto campus, what they were supposed to do, and they just followed suit, so well done.
And I'll give them credit too. I want to give them credit because we had a lot of new students walk onto our campus, and will have, when K2 comes back, more new students. The kiddos that have been with us really stepped up into a role of leader and helper. I mean, they really used what they've learned over the years. We had many students who their parents had dropped them off at the sidewalk, 6th and 7th and 8th graders. They've never seen the campus. They've never been to those classrooms. No idea where they're going. And our students were just wonderful about, oh, well, I'm going by there. I'm going to, follow me and I'll point you in the right direction. And really embracing our newer students too. So I think that there was a confidence, and that was shared with our kiddos that didn't know the campus and weren't able to be independent like the rest of them.
Right. About how many new students have you welcomed on campus now?
Oh, I don't have that number parsed out by who's on campus and who's at home. We have, we've increased about 70 new students. It's about where we're at right now. We just did our enrollment. I think we're right around 310. So there's a big number. I would say in every class there's new students. So we just went through that yesterday, the enrollment yesterday, and we were like, oh my gosh, we are at 310. I think is where we're at.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
In terms of a specific number, how many have come back already? I don't have that off the top of my head because that's by grade level, and I don't actually have that memorized. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love, I feel like Almond Acres is a family, and I love that you felt the students welcoming the new families on, and that they can feel just as much a part of the family. So, we have a couple different programs going on at school right now. We have the site-based learning and also the at-home academy, which is continuing the distance learning for the kids that it really did work for, or that, they felt successful in. Kind of a two-part question. How is the at-home academy going? And then also for, there's always a handful of students that distance learning just was not their cup of tea. It was not a good fit for them, but we didn't really have the choice to not. So as those kids are now on site-based learning, how are you, some might say, some kids fell through the cracks with distance learning. As we know, we try to prevent that from happening as Almond Acres, but how are you connecting with those students who were struggling with distance learning? So tell me about At Home Academy, and then how are you helping those more struggling learners with distance learning, now that they're on site?
So At Home Academy we've kind of transitioned a little bit with that because we have it's a pretty big group now. I think we're at almost 40 students that's in our at home that are continuing with distance learning. We've actually transitioned to a single teacher being the point person. We had a couple different teachers doing that while we were in distance learning. We split it up basically by grade levels, and they were meeting with different teachers. But now Mr. Peckham has taken on our at-home academy, and he's doing a wonderful job connecting and reaching out and making sure he's meeting with those students. They're coming up on the end of their trimester, so they'll be turning in their assignments that are for end of trimester evaluation. It's fun. We've had some families contact us, wait a minute, we're only at this page and this page gets us to the end of the chapter. We need one more week and we'll be done. So there's a passion to it and a earnestness with the family. So I think that's been really lovely to see. I don't want to be a fraud by any means because Carrie and Amy really head up At Home Academy. So I hear on the periphery the stories. So I haven't been super involved directly. I do have some kiddos that have support services and are participating in At Home Academy, and their services just kind of continue like it would have during distance learning. So they're doing all virtual services, which some of the families are really, really happy with. We've actually seen some of our services be super effective for some of our kiddos that are maybe had some distractibility things when they were on campus. So there's been some positives there. Your second question was about how are we addressing struggling learners on campus. So we kind of had a system in place even before we came back to hybrid. We actually did have students on campus. We had certain students who were our most struggling kiddos come in small cohorts and get support. They had a paraeducator or multiple paraeducators on most days working with them to attend their live meetings, to complete their assignments. And that was really successful in the sense of getting those kiddos interacting back with an instructor and not having the parents do the battle of making sure they were doing all of their work. So our most struggling students were sort of captured ahead of time and brought onto campus. And it was great because some of those were brand new kiddos. Some of those are kiddos we did not know. They were new to our school. So we actually were able to get them in. They met our paraeducators and our case managers and admin staff ahead of time. So when they came back into their hybrid model, they already kind of knew where the classrooms were. They knew the staff that was going to be coming in and working with them. So that had some comfort to it. The other students that struggled with distance learning, I think, and I kind of said this earlier, it's only been a couple weeks, so we're going to see over time. But I really feel like we started off with this real positive energy and excitement to be around their peers and their teacher, and I think that's starting us off much more than the beginning of the year traditionally did. I think you're seeing a higher level of that, and the teachers have done a really great job during distance learning, doing small group instruction, trying to pull those kiddos that were struggling. As an admin, I got to observe some of those small groups, and it's just super impressive what was being done virtually for those struggling learners. And then to have that already sort of a component of that teacher and that classroom's norms, I feel really positive about the outcomes for that. So I think we will continue with our various PBIS systems and our MTSS systems. So we'll catch those kiddos that are maybe showing signs of struggle back on hybrid. But yeah, there's been a real positive response for a lot of those kids that were struggling in distance learning. And we've had conversations with some families that, were considering staying in distance learning. And we've had some honest conversations with some families and said, you know what? Being back on campus might give some relief to some of the struggles that we're seeing with your student. And there's been a couple of those conversations, and some of those kiddos have chosen to come back to the in-person instruction. And I'm really happy to see that, because I think the social component can be super motivating. And well, it is super motivating. I think that it's a fact. It can be really motivating. So there's such a huge benefit that I think we have been able to work with some of our families to see that and then have them back on campus.
I love that. I love hearing that. That's great. Thanks, Eileen. So my last question is just a very simple question because it is November, the month of thankfulness. What are you most thankful for right now in this season of your life?
Oh, in terms of work, or my whole life, I think
personal, work, anything.
I think that I'm really actually thankful overall. I know this situation has been hard. And as a mom, this was so much harder than I thought it would be, you know, and I have wonderful kids, not, you know, it's just, this is not, these structures are difficult. And but on the flip side, this has completely opened us up to innovation. And I love thinking outside the box. I'm kind of a puzzle person, and I if someone tells me it has to be some way, I want to know why, and maybe we could think of another new creative way to do something. So yeah. The idea that we have all, professionally, personally, had this opportunity to sort of kind of do a little bit of a reset and a reflect on, do things have to be the way that they've always been? Or is there an opportunity here for change, for innovation? And I think that I'm super thankful for that. I actually did a social media post after we closed, and I said that there is, in my career, and I'm working on 20 years in education now, the fact that a group of people were able to close a school, completely rewrite an instructional program, repace a year's worth of or, you know, a trimester's worth of curriculum, train staff, communicate. It was overwhelming. Like how, I mean, it was not easy, but it was overwhelming how much was accomplished in a very, very short period of time. And I watched fellow educators, not just in our school, but I mean, I've worked in many other districts, and I watched all educators do this sort of complete reset of what we thought was normal. And I think that's really healthy. I think it gets us out of our ruts, and I think it gets us out of the need for to repeat maybe what shouldn't be repeated sometimes. And I also think that that has also opened up, in some ways, frustrations, but it's also opened up a lot of grace and communication that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So yeah, I think maybe that's, I'm thankful for that moment of being able to really take a second and go, wait a minute, do we have to do things we've always done them, or can we rethink this? And I think across the country, we're doing that in education. And then our private life too. Like I said, I never thought in education I would be able to work from home. And here I am working from home. So, you know, it's kind of been a whole, like I said, I'll use the word reset. It's a reflection and a reset. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, I think we've learned so much about you and about the school, and, you know, thanks so much for your time. And it's such an interesting, you know, interviewing people via Zoom, but it is what it is. And I don't know, I just, again, as a parent, as a board member of the school, I'm so thankful, I guess, for your time today, but just for the hard work that you and the rest of the team have continually put into to serve our kids. And I love that part when you said that, you know, we take it very seriously because, you know, families have chosen us, right? Has chosen to bring their children to Almond Acres. And I don't know, like that really hit home for me. So I appreciate you sharing that and everything that you have this morning with us.
I will say that the other thing I just popped into my head, to think that we did all of this and we rechartered all at the same time. It's a pretty amazing thought, you know, that no other school had to do both at once. And it's a pretty monument. And I think, you know, the day we found out that we were rechartering, I think there were so many tears. And I think it wasn't just because of the charter. I think it was because there were so many layers to what the board, the teachers, the admin, all the staff were doing, and to have it sort of validated at that level I think it was poignant in that it wasn't just a yay vote. It was sort of this bigger validation, I think, for a lot of people.
100%.
So,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, it is. I think also, just to sort of echo what you're just saying there is that, for me anyway, like and I feel this is pretty common with a lot of the families, a lot of the parents, and with their kids at Almond Acres, specifically, is that, our kids see that. They see that, I mean, we're leading by example, I think, right? As parents, as administrators, as teachers, that, we have so many challenges around us constantly, right? But we just continue to persevere and just keep pushing and pushing and pushing for the right thing. And I talk to my kids about that all the time. I'm like, we're very fortunate to have the opportunity to have a choice to send you guys wherever we want. And it's not easy, right? But it's what we feel is the right thing, and we keep pushing. And even though people keep trying to trip us up along the way, right? Or pandemics try and trip us up, we just keep pushing forward. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of being a part of that.
Think about how prepared we are for whatever else happened. I mean, we got through all of this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So,
and I agree with you. I think our kids will see that as they get older. I mean, I know my kids, sometimes I get the grumble about, school or whatever, they're kids. And I think that when they are adults and they reflect back, and there's going to be a very different viewpoint than all of us have looking back at our childhood, because they went through things that are very, very different. And we're in an environment that was very, very different.
Right.
And I'm glad we've made it as happy as we can for them and successful for them.
Exactly. Good. Well, thank you again so much. Thank you, Abby, for your time as well. And
thank you, Eileen. Thanks, Ed.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I will say, I have to give a shout out. Carrie and Bob and Amy have been the miracle workers. I'm the support. So I have to give my.
Well, you just add your name to that list, because it's all you guys.
Yeah, coattails.
Yeah, it's definitely a team effort, and we appreciate you sharing, sort of on behalf of yourself and the rest of the team, how, sort of answering all of our questions. So much appreciated, and have a good rest of your day, good holiday, and, we'll see you on campus soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.